Welcome back to Nightmare Situations, the channel where we dive deep into the most chilling mysteries, true horrors, and strange events that blur the line between fact and nightmare. War is filled with horrors, fire, blood, and destruction, but sometimes nature itself becomes the executioner. Tonight, we step into one of history's darkest nightmares, the Battle of Ramree Island, a place where 1,000 men marched into the swamp and never came back. By early 1945, the Japanese Empire was crumbling. The Allies pushed relentlessly through the Pacific. Burma was next, and with it, control of the vital shipping lanes in the Bay of Bengal. Ramree Island may have seemed small, but it held something priceless, an airfield. An airfield from which Japan could threaten the Allied fleets, and an airfield that the Allies were determined to capture. The Japanese garrison, around 1,000 men, prepared to defend it to the death. Opposing them, British and Indian divisions supported by artillery, tanks and naval firepower. The balance of power was not equal. On January 14, 1945, the British assault began. Naval guns fired, villages burnt, palm trees shattered into splinters. The earth shook beneath the bombardment. But the Japanese, they fought back. Snipers hidden in the canopy, machine guns concealed in the thick jungle. Every British advance was met by sudden fire. The fighting was slow, relentless. The jungle itself worked against the men. Humidity drained their strength, leeches clung onto their skin, and malaria spread. Ramree was already a battlefield of misery before the true nightmare had even begun. Despite their determination, the Japanese were trapped. The Allies controlled the seas, supplies were gone, the food had run out, and their water had turned foul. The wounds that they had sustained from the battles that they had had with the British were now festering, and the hunger had completely hollowed them out. Their commander faced a grim choice: surrender or escape. But surrender was forbidden by the Imperial Japanese Army, and so nearly 1,000 men made a desperate decision. They would retreat through Ramree's mangrove swamps, a place few had ever crossed, and live to tell the tale. The mangrove swamp of Ramree was no sanctuary. It was living hell. Mud sucked at every step, clouds of mosquitoes drained blood, and the stench of rot filled the air. Every shadow seemed to move. Every ripple in the water whispered of something watching. And in these waters lurked the saltwater crocodile, the largest reptile alive, over 20 feet long and weighing more than a car, an apex predator older than history itself. These predators do not stalk like wolves. They wait, silent, still as driftwood. Then, in an instant, they explode from the water with bone-crunching force. For the Japanese soldiers, the swamp was not just mud and mosquitoes. It was a hunting ground, and they had just stepped into it. As night fell, the nightmare began. British soldiers posted outside of the swamp heard it all. First shouts, orders barked in the darkness, gunfire, and then screams, high, piercing screams. Then the splashing of men in the water, and mixed with it, the deep, guttural bellow of massive reptiles. Naturist Bruce White later called it the most dreadful nightmare imaginable. The swamp echoed with chaos, men drowning, being dragged under and devoured alive. By dawn, silence. Of nearly 1,000 soldiers, less than half made it out alive. In 2006, Robert Duff, formerly of the 26th Division, stated to the BBC, "After a few weeks we managed to push the Japanese to the swamp on the other side of the island, which was full of crocodiles. They decided to take their chances through the swamp rather than surrender. Only a handful came out alive." The Guinness Book of World Records once declared it the greatest disaster caused by animals in human history. But questions remain. Did crocodiles truly kill hundreds? Or did disease, exhaustion and combat claim most of those lives? Some historians argue that the crocodile massacre was exaggerated, but even skeptics admit the swamp was deadly and the crocodiles were there. In 2011, historian Frank McGlynn challenged this theory. He stated, "Most of all, there's a single zoological problem. If thousands of crocodiles were involved in the massacre, as in the massacre on Ramree Island, how had these remaining monsters survived before the massacre, and how would they survive after? The ecosystem of the mangrove swamp, with the distinct lack of mammal life, would simply not have permitted the existence of so many crocodiles before the incoming of the Japanese." That being said, there are definitely crocodiles that reside in the Ramree Island mangrove swamps. So it's completely possible that the Japanese soldiers were attacked by crocodiles, but just not to the levels that's reported in the legends. Saltwater crocodiles were still common on Ramree Island's regions into the 1960s, but the region no longer supports a viable population of crocodiles. This is likely due to hide hunting, and by the early 1980s evidence suggested that only a couple of scattered individuals of crocodiles were still remaining on the island. People have been debating for years what actually happened on Ramree Island, but what no one disputes is the terror. Men trapped in darkness, surrounded by unseen predators. Fear alone may have killed many of these men, as well as the teeth and claws. War creates nightmares, but sometimes the most merciless horrors are not man-made. On Ramree Island, the soldiers discovered that the jungle itself was their enemy. Silent, ancient, waiting. On Ramree Island, war became a feeding ground. So what do you think happened? Was it the deadliest attack by animals in human history? Was it disease? Was it the injuries sustained from combat? Or was it a mixture of everything and both? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Nightmare Situations, because sometimes reality is more terrifying than any nightmare. Thank you for watching.